time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
I'm going to preface the actual main topic with this story. Obviously, this is J.K. Rowling, who ran afoul of the woke, indoctrinated brain fever group by basically saying that men can't be women. They attacked her for being anti-trans and attacked her for standing up for actually standing up for women's rights. And she has fought back, but it's interesting to note that some of the people actually attacking her have been the young cast of Harry Potter. Okay, which is like, if it wasn't for her, none of you would have a job. Okay? It's very interesting to me how she's standing up for, in a feminist way, for women's rights, to keep men out of sports, women's sports, and to keep men out of women's bathrooms. And she's being shot down because she's being transphobic. What about the women? But here's what's interesting. She stood up for herself. And Ralph Fiennes backed her up. Ralph Fiennes basically defended her, basically saying, she's standing up for women's rights, leave her alone. And this is the guy that played Voldemort. When you start looking at the Brits, they're very, very eager to have these discussions. And there's, let me explain. There's liberals, like Rowling and Fiennes, and then there's totalitarian assholes, which are the ones screaming at them and J.K. Rowling for being transphobic, like it's a thing, okay? Made up words, it's Orwellian in nature, and watching somebody like Ralph Fiennes stand up, and it wasn't that he was white knighting her. He was just like, she's right. So why am I talking about this? Helen Mirren was getting shit for daring to play Golda Meir, the first female prime minister of Israel, in the movie Golda, which was written by a man named Nicholas Martin, who is not Jewish at all. Wrote this screenplay, and he basically talked about a creeping authoritarianism. I call it totalitarianism, in which writers are only allowed to write about their own kind. And he's basically saying, what am I supposed to do? Only write about middle-aged men from South London? That's not, writers as creatives should be allowed to create. This is ultimately what they're talking about. There's a freedom in creativity that when you get activists involved and these parasitical, racist jackasses involved, that they hamper creativity. And Helen Mirren defended Martin and defended herself for playing Golda Meir. I mean, she's basically Golda's family basically said she was exactly what our mother was, our grandmother was, our great-grandmother was. People who knew Golda basically have said that in the movie, she's more Golda than Golda was. Okay, that's how great of an actress she is. Okay, but what they're trying to do is Jew face Helen Mirren here, and then Jew face Nicholas Martin here. Now, this is Maureen Lipman, who is in the Deadline article quoted as well that's going to be found in the description. She basically says, a typical Labour Party, British, stuck-up snob bitch that she is, I'm sure Helen will acquit herself quite well as Golda, but you just wouldn't cast Ben Kingsley as Nelson Mandela. Like, that's an equivalence. But Ben Kingsley has played Mossad agents. Ben Kingsley has played all kinds of different characters that were not Asian Indian, okay? But apparently that doesn't how can I say this? That didn't cross Fluffy Brain's mind here. Okay? See, these are the false equivalencies they'll come up with. She is again trying to Jew face Helen Mirren by bringing up something that no one would ever do anyway, because it would be stupid casting. You know, it would be like casting Ben Kingsley as Nelson Mandela would be just a bad casting decision, okay? I mean, what Lipman is saying is that this is Helen Mirren playing Cara Dutton in 1923. Basically, Lipman would say she shouldn't play Cara Dutton because Cara Dutton is Irish. Or maybe she's such a racist, Lipman is, that she's like, well, that's okay because they're both white. You know, but again, her Ben Kingsley thing is he would never be allowed to play Nelson Mandela. I think Ben Kingsley is Asian Indian, okay? And he's played Jews. Okay? He has played Moses, for crying out loud. Okay? So I'm looking at Lipman going, did you hear what you just said? This is the way the left thinks. Let's go back to J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling made a logical, rational statement when she said men should not be allowed in women's bathrooms or playing women's sports. And they've tried to cancel her ever since. Helen Mirren, as an actress, played Golda Meir. Okay? But because Golda Meir is a Jewish woman, she should not be allowed to play Golda Meir. You know, what I think this is Maureen Lipman being jealous that she's never had the opportunities to do something like this that Helen Mirren has. Okay? There are plenty of... Ingrid Bergman played Golda Meir, for crying out loud.
I was at the movies.
You are unwise to lower your defenses.
This is Helen Mirren from the movie Mosquito Coast. She played the poor put-upon wife of Allie Fox, played by Harrison Ford. It's actually, every time he says this, I look at him and go, you're crazy, right? Allie Fox is actually Harrison Ford's favorite character because he's a nutbag. He's a complete asshole. And this movie is one of the strangest movies I've ever seen. Harrison Ford should have been nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor, and he wasn't. And Mirren has been somebody I've known since, Masterpiece Theater and a lot of stuff on PBS. Young British actress, well known. She's been in tons of great things. Her latest venture that I've paid attention to beyond Golda is 1923 with reuniting her with Harrison Ford. They're basically playing, in my opinion, Han and Leia as an older couple, which is, when I think about how Han and Leia should have ended up, it's this right here. And Helen Mirren is excellent. But let's go back to the premise of Maureen Lipman's argument. I'm sure that Helen Mirren will acquit herself nobly and do well with Golda. However, you wouldn't cast Ben Kingsley as Nelson Mandela. Again, that's a false equivalency, but when you're dealing with someone who's a left-wing, condescending, faux intellectual, that's what you're going to get, because they don't sit back and think about what they're saying, okay? And that's the problem here. I also, again, think that Lippman was jealous that Helen got the role and has gotten roles that have put her up there for being an Academy Award contender and BAFTA awards when, I mean, I've never heard of Maureen Lipman. I don't think anybody has. But she's quoted, so I'm going to take her out because she's the one that the lefty writer for Deadline is using to bitch and moan about Helen Mirren. Kamran wrote a very good article on his Patreon about this because he even said he had a story about Esther. It was a great script, but the studio wouldn't take it because it was about a Jewish woman and he's a Muslim man. Okay. You know, again, they're telling creatives they're only allowed to stay in the box that they were born in, okay? That's like, you know, I like to fool around fan fiction. And telling me I could only write about Leia, Padme, or Ahsoka would hamper me because I write about Han, I throw Wedge Antilles into some of the things I've written, Luke Skywalker, etc. Okay, it's not that difficult if you have an imagination and a critical mind, okay? And the whole write what you know, in my opinion, is bullshit. Because writing what you know limits you, okay? It's like when I was a singer, long time ago, when I was in high school, I sang everything. I roared heavy metal. I did classical music. I did arias. I did Schubert, country. I did swing vocals, swing band, jazz vocals. I did everything. Why? Because I liked performing. I loved music. And if I liked it, I wanted to do it. It did not matter what genre of music it was. Okay. And I didn't limit myself. And if you have the talent to do something, like you're a singer, you can sing opera, you can sing jazz, you can sing heavy metal, do it. If you're an actor and you can approximate the part of Golda Meir, like Helen Mirren, do it. Ingrid Bergman, Swedish, she did it. Okay? So, my opinion is when I see these non-player character SJWs crying about this, they're Orwellian keepsake ornaments. I mean, that's what they are. They have one purpose. They're not, they don't think critically, they're not, look, these activists, and that's who are attacking both Nicholas Martin, the writer, and Helen Mirren, the actress. Meanwhile, the director's Jewish, of Golda. They're telling them, as creators, they can't be creative unless they're allowed to. Creeping authoritarianism, to me, it's left-wing fascism on steroids. And it's something Orwell warned us about. It limits creativity to the point where there is no creativity, okay? And that's a big problem with Hollywood right now. This is Steph, signing out. I'll see you around the galaxy.